I find it highly ironic that we are having a hearing to express the majority's apparent surprise that matters related to Yucca Mountain are sometimes political. This issue has been nothing but political from the very beginning. The Department of Energy was supposed to select two scientifically appropriate sites, one east of Mississippi and one west of Mississippi River. But the Speaker of the House then said he didn't want it in Texas. That was one of the sites. The second site was in Washington State. The majority leader came from Washington State. He said, I don't want it in Washington State. It was out. The third state was the salt domes in Louisiana. The chairman of the Committee on Energy from the Senate said, I don't want it in Louisiana. The fourth site was in North Carolina. The ranking Republican on this committee said, I don't want it in North Carolina. Mississippi itself was a potential site, but they had a very powerful delegation at that time, and they said, we don't want it in Mississippi. And John Sununu, and as the governor of New Hampshire, on behalf of George Bush running for president in '88, said, we don't want it in the granite formations of New Hampshire. And so the nuclear queen of spades wound up, not on a scientific basis, but a political basis, political, in Nevada. That's how it all happened. I was here. I was saying, you make a political decision, you're going to wind up with big scientific problems at the end of the day, big scientific problems. So Congress actually, this committee barred the Department of Energy from looking at any other site other than Yucca Mountain. We used political science, not real science, to hand that nuclear queen of spades to Nevada. That's the legacy this committee left. The problem is that Yucca Mountain has two fault lines running through it and is in an active earthquake zone. There have been more than 600 earthquakes within 50 miles of the site within the past 20 years. We saw just how earthquakes can impact spent nuclear fuel in Japan just a few months ago. Moreover, in 1997, scientists found that plutonium from nuclear weapons tests that had been conducted just a few decades earlier had migrated a mile through water in the rock near Yucca Mountain, which contradicted earlier assertions that the repository site was geologically isolated from the water table. So basically what we had was Congress writing a law that Yucca Mountain was a nuclear Alcatraz from which there could be no migration of this nuclear material. But scientists said it was more like a nuclear sieve. And we heard that from the National Academy of Sciences back then in 1987 and 86. We heard it from them here, but this committee and other committees ignored that warning. The Obama administration bravely recognized that moving forward with Yucca Mountain was not the scientifically appropriate dedication and direction to take. DOE withdrew its license application, and Congress started to slash funding for the project. Chairman Greg Yaskow then did what any permitting office would do when a building plan is canceled. He stopped spending money processing the permit. Although members of this committee have accused him of doing something illegal, the NRC Inspector General and General Counsel have both found that it was legal and entirely within his authority to do so. Mr. Bell, you said earlier that Chairman Yaskow's press release on your report was his alone and you had no input. But isn't it true that you and your deputy saw the statement before it went out from Chairman Yaskow, and you told the Chairman's Chief of Staff that you had no objections? Is that true?
No, that's not true. I read the statement, but I said that was his statement. We made no changes, nothing to the statement. I just saw the statement because he said he was going to put it out.
Did you say you had an objection to him putting it out?
I said I didn't oppose him releasing the statement.
You did not oppose to him in putting out that statement?
No. I mean,
okay, great. So in finding number one, you said the commissioners, two of the commissioners didn't understand that when the chairman told them that he would be using the appropriations process to proceed with closure of the Yucca Mountain program, this meant that documents necessary for the Yucca Mountain license would cease being prepared. On page 23, your report notes that when Chairman Yaskow suspected that one of the commissioners didn't understand the discussion they had, he directed his staff to follow up with the commissioner's staff to be sure it was clear. Do you believe that Chairman Yaskow is responsible for a failure by other commissioners to understand their support for a document that said it would begin the closure of Yucca Mountain's technical review and adjudicatory activities when the license application was withdrawn, even after he tried to explain it to them?
Clearly, he said Chairman Yaskow is irresponsible.
Is it his fault that they didn't understand it? If they were
He had a responsibility to ensure that they understood the context of the four squares of that piece of paper. And if they are saying, and what they relayed to us during the interviews, was they never came to understand that the SERs, and I think sometimes there's a differences.
I have a hard time. Can I tell you the truth? I have a hard time when two commissioners on the Nuclear Regulatory Commission can't understand something this prosaic, this simple, when they have to understand the most complex nature of nuclear material. So to say that they didn't understand something so fundamental, okay, as to the way in which the regulatory process works, in my opinion, they did not do their job. They did not. They had a responsibility after they were told that that was the route that they were going to get on. I thank the Chairman.